Hello everyone and welcome back to our course on modern web development. As you know, AI is booming right now and it's everywhere. And as developers integrating AI into their own applications, it's very important to understand all the ethical implications of the technology we build. AI systems have the potential to greatly benefit society, but also carry a lot of risks and biases if not designed responsibly. And this lesson is gonna mostly focus on understanding the AI ethics and some privacy and data protection, which include understanding the importance of user privacy and learning the best practices for handling personal data. And before we start, here are the objectives and table of contents for this lesson. So, comprehend the fundamental ethical considerations in AI development, recognize potential biases in AI systems and strategies to mitigate them, understand the importance of transparency and explainability in AI, and learn the best practices for handling personal data and protecting user privacy, which is very important nowadays. Okay, we're gonna start with understanding AI ethics. Essentially, ethics in AI involves the moral principles that guide the development and use of artificial intelligence technologies. Ethical AI aims to ensure that systems are developed and utilized in ways that are fair, transparent, and beneficial to all stakeholders. Because you've probably seen those movies where AI is all like evil and is gonna destroy the world and wreak havoc and just impact the world, but in a bad way. And that's why we need those ethical implications to make sure that this AI and robot revolution won't actually happen. So while this lesson may seem boring, it's actually very important, so just bear with me. Talking about bias in the AI systems, so for those who don't know, bias in AI usually occurs when AI system produces results that are systematically one-sided due to the erroneous assumptions in the machine learning process. And some of the sources of bias might include, and by the way, most of these biases are pretty famous, and you might be familiar with them from your statistics or AP stats class at your school. Okay, so the first one on the list is data bias, and it has the sampling bias, which occurs when the training data is not representative of the real-world population. And the second one is historical bias, which reflects past one-sided or biases or inequalities embedded in the historical data. And the second type is algorithmic bias. The algorithm may unintentionally prioritize certain outcomes or patterns, reinforcing existing biases. And some of the impacts of the bias include, well, discrimination is probably the most important one, such as unfair treatment of individuals or groups based on characteristics like race, gender, age, etc. Also erosion of trust, so users may lose confidence in AI systems perceived as unfair or biased, and also legal and ethical consequences, violations of anti-discrimination laws and ethical standards. And some of the examples include, and the first one is pretty infamous, so the hiring algorithm, an AI system that favors male candidates over female candidates due to biased training data, and there are a ton of researches out there to explore the hiring algorithms biases in depth, so you can just play with it on your own and explore them in depth. And the second example is facial recognition software, so systems that have higher mistake error rates for certain ethnic groups due to the lack of diversity in training images. So yeah, basically all the biases occur from the data that humans provide to the machine learning algorithms. So that's why we have to be very cautious and aware of what data we're feeding to the algorithm itself. And some strategies to mitigate bias is to ensure that datasets are representative of the population, and also evaluate AI systems periodically for biases, and involve people from diverse backgrounds, so we'll have a lot of perspectives and point of view in the development process of machine learning algorithms. And now we're going to talk about fairness and equity in AI. So fairness in AI, ensuring that AI systems make decisions that are just and impartial. And some of the approaches to fairness include demographic parity, so equal treatment of different demographic groups, and equality of opportunity, so giving equal chance of favorable outcomes for all individuals. And equity in AI, so recognizing and accommodating the different needs of individuals or groups to achieve fair outcomes. And however, there are some of the challenges that might occur on the way, so different contexts may require different definitions of what is fair, so sometimes it might be very hard to define what is fair and what is unfair. And also there are some trade-offs. Achieving fairness is in one aspect may lead to unfairness in another. So again, we have to be very cautious when working with that. But it's main important that it promotes social justice and increases user trust and acceptance. Now we're gonna talk about transparency and explainability in AI. So being open about how AI systems work, including data sources, algorithms, and decision-making processes. And actually, a great example is Llama, if I'm not mistaken. So Meta. Meta open sourced their AI model, which is called Llama, and the recent model 3.1, which trained on billions of parameters. And they basically open sourced it on GitHub so everyone can learn about their AI system, train their own AI, how it works. They also included data sources, algorithms, and what processes that are involved in this AI. So that's respect to Meta for making their company transparent. So yeah. And the ability to explain how an AI system arrived at a specific decision at prediction in understandable terms is explainability. And the benefits include compliance, trust, and accountability that allows stakeholders to hold developers responsible. Still, there are some challenges that include trade secrets, so companies might be reluctant to disclose proprietary algorithms, and complexity of AI models. So some models, like deep neural networks, are inherently complex, so it might be very hard to navigate through their internal processes. And some of the approaches to improve transparency are, well, again, open sourcing the model documentation, user interfaces, so design interfaces that explain AI decisions, and just making simpler models overall. So use models that are inherently interpretable when possible. And some of the real-world implications of AI decisions include positive impacts. So first, efficiency, automating tasks and processes leading to cost savings, innovation, and personalization. And some negative impact that you probably heard of are job displacement, automation leading to unemployment in certain sectors. And there's like a whole talk going on nowadays that AI is going to replace all humans and there will be a massive job displacement, which is kind of already happening, but still, AI can't work on its own, so they need like a co-pilot, basically humans on their side, to regulate them, provide them with rules, and make them fair and bias-free. Also, privacy invasions, so unauthorized use of or exposure of personal data, and amplification of bias, so reinforcing existing society biases and inequalities. And here's some case studies for you to study. So, Compass algorithm, a criminal risk assessment tool found to be biased against African Americans. And the second one is credit scoring systems, AI systems denying loans to certain demographics due to biased data that are being fed to the AI model itself. And moving on to privacy and data protection. So user privacy is a fundamental right, and as a developers, it's essential to protect personal data and handle it responsibly. So definition of personal data is any information that relates to an unidentified or identifiable individual. And why privacy matters, of course, is trust, legal compliances. It's very important in laws like GDPR and CCPA that enforce strict data protection standards towards us as individuals and AI, and ethical responsibility, so respecting user autonomy and dignity. And there are a lot of risks associated with poor privacy practices such as legal penalties, loss of reputations, and data breaches. And best practices for handling personal data include data minimization, so collect only necessary data, limit data collection to what is essential for the application's functionality, so don't just feed the model a bunch of data hoping that it will give very accurate results, as it may still give you a lot of biases and flaws. Also, anonymization, so remove or mask personal identifiers to protect user identity. And regarding user consent, clearly inform users about data collection and usage. So you probably see, like, when you go to the website, it always asks like whether you allow the website to collect cookies or different data, and to give your consent permission to like give some of your data to the company so they can track and make some decisions based on that. So yeah, and also, yeah, once again, it's very important to include transparent policies, easy withdrawal, so allow users to revoke consent and delete their data, such as delete account, And from my own personal experience, since I'm an iOS developer and I published 4 apps in the App Store, it is required to have a feature that allows users to delete their own accounts if authorization methods involved. So yeah, and the third one is obtain explicit consent before collecting personal data. So it also kind of connects to being transparent and having transparent policies. And some of the secure data storage practices include encryption, access controls, so restrict data access to authorized personnel only, and regular security audits, so identify and fix vulnerabilities and flaws within the data or storage itself. We can skip that because it's pretty obvious, so data retention policies and user rights that for access correction deletion. And we're gonna jump to regulatory considerations. So there's a regulatory consideration which is called GDPR, which stands for General Data Protection Regulation, and its scope applies to organizations processing personal data of EU citizens, regardless of the organization's location. And some of the key principles include accountability, accuracy, data minimalization, purpose limitation, storage limitation, and so on. And there's also a California Consumer Privacy Act, which applies to businesses handling personal data of California residents. And key rights include non-discrimination, rights to know, delete, to opt out of sale. And the implications for developers include ensure compliance with applicable data protection laws and stay informed about changes in legislation. And so how to actually apply ethical principles in AI development is to include people from different backgrounds to provide varied perspectives, focus on the needs and values of end users, also try to mitigate bias, just focus on that and be sure that you try to avoid it at all costs. So examine datasets for biases and take steps to correct them, and also use fairness-aware machine learning techniques. There are a bunch of them online, so you can just kind of explore them on your own. And also maintain clear documentation and user education, so inform users about how the AI system works and its limitations. And talking about privacy by design, so consider privacy implications during the planning phase and configure systems to the highest privacy settings by default. So make sure that your privacy settings are your top priority and you actually spend some time on those. Also evaluate how personal data is processed and identify potential risks, and also ensure that any third-party services or APIs used within your applications comply with privacy standards. So in this lesson, we talked about a lot of biases, AI ethics, and how to apply those ethical principles. So yeah, we explored AI ethics, learned about privacy and data protection, and applied ethical principles. And since this is the end of the lesson, here are some discussion questions for you to explore. So can you think of an example where bias in AI could impact a user's experience? So you could even go to Archive or Google Scholar and just explore a bunch of papers talking about how AI impacts user's experience. So yeah, and then you can just answer it on your own or send your answers to me directly. And how could you address this bias? And also, what steps can you take to ensure user data is protected in your AI application? And how would you communicate your data practices to users? And about transparency, why is transparency important in AI systems? So yeah, once again, think about that. And how can you make your AI application more transparent to users? And here's some additional resources for you to read. So ethics in AI, some IBM's approaches to trustworthy AI, and privacy and data protection from official GDPR website and CCPA compliance guide. And yeah, once again, if you have any questions or need further clarification or on any of the topics covered in this lesson, feel free to ask. And thank you for your participation. Happy hacking, and see you in the next lesson.